Good morning. There we go. Good morning, everybody. Can you make some noise for your Grand Rapids Area Chamber of Commerce for putting on this incredible event? I think they deserve a little bit more noise now. I've been to a lot of luncheons. I've gotten some really bland chicken. I've gotten some things that wasn't so great. And these potatoes were seasoned. They were great. Everybody make some noise for your Grand Rapids Area Chamber of Commerce. So, for those that do not know, my name is Marcel Fable Price, and because Grand Rapids is really fond of titles and accolades, I'll talk a little bit about who I am. I am the former Poet Laureate of the city of Grand Rapids, the first person of color to ever hold the title of being Poet Laureate in the city of Grand Rapids, the youngest person in city history to hold the title of Poet Laureate, as well as the first person without a college degree to hold the title of Poet Laureate. I am also the executive director of a unicorn nonprofit organization called the Diatribe. The reason that I call our organization a unicorn organization is because we are an organization that is founded and ran completely by Black, brown, and queer folks. This organization is not a chain of some organization somewhere across the country. This organization was founded here in Grand Rapids by the people who started it and continue to run it to this day. Also, all of our teaching artists with our organization are all Black, brown, and queer folks. And about 90% of all of our contractors, all of our independent contractors, if they're not Black, brown, or queer, are Black, brown, queer, or women-owned businesses, right? I want you to keep that in mind when you see things like the 49507 project video, because every single aspect of our organization is intentional. Now, I know we're a city that really loves titles, but I think that it's also important to talk about the real human nature aspect of who you are before you get into talking, because I'm a lot more than just accolades. I'm somebody who grew up poor. I'm a pure Michigan kid. I was born in Lansing, raised in Kalamazoo and Ypsi, and for the last 12 years, I've called Grand Rapids home. I'm somebody that has a really complex criminal history. I've gone on a few fishing trips, is what we call it, when we have to be out of office, and you can't put up an email responder that people are going to judge you over. And I am somebody who is married to an incredibly dynamic woman who I met here in Grand Rapids, who is a former cancer survivor who is now battling terminal cancer, which is a journey that is not for the faint of heart. When I told my wife that the Chamber of Commerce asked me to speak at their annual event, their DEI summit, she responded, "Do they know what you talk about and your values? Don't get somebody fired for giving you this opportunity. And also, don't say something that's going to get you blackballed in Grand Rapids and not be able to do work anywhere ever again, and then you're going to have to move to Detroit." So I say that to say to the people that gave me this opportunity, do not worry. I am going to be more James Baldwin than Huey Newton. I want to start off by talking about what is equity to me. I began with talking about my unique story and my unique experience because varying from some of my colleagues and some of the other people that you heard, my definition of equity is a little bit different than some of my colleagues and peers. My definition of equity is the transition of power, right? Far too often, when people do DEI work, and as I started to get involved with the nonprofit sector in Grand Rapids, Michigan, I saw that a lot of organizations use DE&I language to get grant funding to then give dollars to people who are not DE and or I. I didn't understand this until I realized that this is something that's really, really common. And in a hub, and in a place like Grand Rapids, where it's a philanthropic capital of the country, it's a great way to get money. When I think equity, when I think actual equitable work, I think about giving power to people that do not have power and giving power to people who need power. For example, we have a lot of incredible schools in the city of Grand Rapids with incredible people and incredible young people who come from our neighborhoods. We also have a lot of people in here. Raise your hands if you have kids. How many people in here have kids? Keep your hands up, keep your hands up. How many people have kids? Put your hands up, put your hands up. Keep your hand up if your kids attend Grand Rapids Public Schools. All right. Keep your hands up if your kids attend a public school that is not a theme school. So one thing that I want to think about, because it's been a huge talking point as of late, is how many schools do we have where a lot of people who have access don't send their kids to because they're like, you know what, I'm really worried about my student going there because I want them to have more opportunities. When I think of equity, I think, why aren't we pouring into the schools that need the support, schools that have had substitutes for just as long as they've had some teachers? Some of my students at Ottawa Hills High School have never had a math teacher. They just continued to have extended period subs. When I think equity work, I think taking resources from places that have resources and bringing power and resources to the people that need it. When I think equity work, again, I think our neighborhoods, places that I love. Instead of saying, you know what, let's raise $80 million to build 40 homes, and some of that cost will also cover construction workers and all these other things, I think, why don't we use some of this capital to buy the housing stock that exists and get the people who want and need homes, who have always called our neighborhood homes, into these homes, right? Why don't we solve the issues instead of creating new systems that have their own unique issues and ways to solve these issues? That is what I think equity work is, and that's what I think it is to me. Now, I believe that a lot of people are really, really scared of DE&I work because they're like, what am I going to have to lose? What are people going to take away from it, right? And I don't believe that it's going to be taking away from what people have, but I think that it's moving intentionally, moving forward, so that we're thinking radically every step of the way. For example, when you saw the video with the 49507 project, we canvassed nearly 5,500 homes in my neighborhood alone. When we did this canvassing, it was all black and brown folks that did this canvassing. A majority of the people who were all paid to do this canvassing were underdocumented folks. Again, every step of the way, how are we intentional? How are we compensating people for their skills, for their intellectual property, and how are we paying them well to where they start to trust the work that we do? A lot of people, as I do more work in neighborhoods, I start to realize that they don't trust nonprofit organizations because of the way that we've ran them for far too long. So when it comes to giving, when it comes to philanthropic activities, how do we make sure that we're pouring into organizations with people in administrative positions that are a mirror of the people that they're serving? Again, how do we pour into organizations, businesses, and entities that are a mirror of the people that they're serving? I want to really leave you all with a thought. And that is, I think the people in this room have the power, and that we all have the collective ability to take Grand Rapids from a place to see and transitioning it to the place to be. When we were doing shows in Grand Rapids, we were doing poetry and nightlife activities. People don't know this, and you guys might not know this unless you were there, and if you were there, then you might not remember it the way I don't remember some of the nights, because that's the way we did the show. But we had this show called The Drunken Retort, and it was one of the top poetry shows in the country. And that's not us like putting it on some biased list that we paid to be on. This is poets all across the country saying, this is the #1 show to be at. We had artists flying to Grand Rapids from New York, from Florida. We had artists flying in once from Ireland to bless our stages because they were like the crowds in Grand Rapids, the people in Grand Rapids, the energy, the environment in Grand Rapids. And when people left our shows, these features from Detroit, these features from Philly, they'd all leave and they go, man, Grand Rapids is a really diverse city. And I would go, yeah. But come back again because, it is the spot to be. And they would believe it. And artists would come back and they'd reach out to GVSU and they'd reach out to these other institutions. They'd be like, yo, we need to do more shows there. We need to do more shows in these colleges. And I say that to say that if we have the right people doing the right things in our communities and in our neighborhoods, then Grand Rapids will truly turn into that destination place that we all want it to be, right? I'm a disruptor. I don't like that title. That's kind of corny. I like to shake up the snow globe, but the only reason I shake up the snow globe is because I care so much about the city that I want to raise a family here, that I want Grand Rapids to continue to be the best place that it can be. And through putting the right people in the right positions, I believe that we can get there. When I learned about the master planning process in Grand Rapids, again, I'm an everyday human being, so a lot of this stuff was completely foreign to me. But when I dove through the master plan documents and how our cities work, I read through it all from beginning to end, and I thought to myself, well, no wonder where we're at now, right? Because if you read the way that the master planning process worked and what came to fruition, it's an exact mirror of what they wanted it to be, right? I believe in the next time around with the master planning process, and I believe in the future, we need to start by investing in our neighborhoods and making our neighborhoods a diverse, vibrant, unique experience and have every one of them being different and unique and powerful in their own right. When you go to places like Chicago, again, when you go to places like Philly, when you go to places like New Orleans, they all have these unique, powerful, incredible neighborhoods that are all unique and vibrant in their own right, right? If you live in the 49507, if you live in the Southeast Side, where do you go to see a show, right? Where are your bars, right? Where are your bookstores, right? Where do you play, eat, live, and work in your neighborhood? And a lot of our neighborhoods don't have that aspect, right? Wealthy didn't have that aspect until it was gentrified and made to look completely different, which is to say, as we are building in our neighborhoods from the outside in, please don't go over there and buy up all the properties and gentrify the areas so that they become these destinations. If you're looking at the census data for a neighborhood and you're seeing that, let's say, 60-70% people of color live in this neighborhood, let's get to trying to work to where 60 and 70% of people of color who live in that neighborhood own their homes. Let's get to the point of where 60-70% people of color own the property in their business districts. Let's not use terms like affordable housing to make housing affordable for 20 years so then it turns to market rate after and then people make money hand over fist. Let's actually pass the baton of power so that we're actually building real equity, real generational wealth, and we're making our neighborhoods a mirror of the people who live there today. I'm going to end with a call to action. What is the idea of the 49507 project? The idea is to make our neighborhoods look like we live there. Plain and simple. In doing this project, we did listening sessions with people who lived in the neighborhoods, had connections to the neighborhoods, and the people in these listening sessions had brilliant ideas. They said, what if we planted tiger lilies in the end of every one of our streets, orange ones, so that they were the color of Ottawa Hills High School, and so that whenever you drove through our neighborhood in one time a year, it was nothing but flowers all throughout the neighborhood, and we started to create a visual identity. It would catch the litter, it would catch the trash, so that when you have urban tumbleweeds, which are normally Takis bags blowing along the street, that they don't get in your yard, right? Again, people had these unique, powerful ideas that only come from people who have lived and have lived experience in the neighborhoods. I want the 49507 project to grow to be where we have a multicultural arts district in Grand Rapids. We don't have an arts district, but I believe the 49507 zip code could be our first, and I believe it could also be a multicultural arts district. And if we do it right, if we leverage development dollars, then we can make our neighborhoods look like we lived there for years and years and years to come and create a financial lever that would get some of our state's most talented, diverse artists, creatives, to create here, to call their home here. Because even with this project, we've had some artists move into our neighborhood and call our neighborhood home, which again is showing that we can build a renaissance if we put the right people in the right places. Again, call to action. When you leave here, go see the art. Go to the 49507 project splash page on the diatribe.org, see where the art is, and go soak in the businesses, soak in the people, soak in the culture. Look around the neighborhood, scan the QR codes, see how they look today, versus how they were zoned in the 1930s when our neighborhood was redlined. Again, thank you all for committing to do this work. I know that a lot of you get burnt out and tired and aren't paid enough to really pour your everything into this work, but I commend you all for doing it. I also believe that if we all continue to work, if we continue to get the right people in the right positions, that we will make Grand Rapids the city that we all know it can be and that we all want it to become. Thank you very much.